Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Sorry about the delay here. We had one of our cast members have an emergency, but still want to come on here for a few minutes because we have the amazing Andy Dhanaraj from LiveFlow, and we're coming at you live from Business Cannabis. My name is Shabazz Karavarani. I'm one of the hosts of Business Cannabis and also the principal of SK Ventures, a fractional go-to-market and growth-oriented firm. And here I have Andy from LiveFlow. Andy, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. Everything's going Shabazz.
Things are good, man. Things are good. I was just actually telling Andy, everybody, that I'm actually in India right now in Delhi. So it's actually 10:47 p.m. here, but this conversation fires me up so much I couldn't miss it. And so we're here. We're here to talk a little bit about cannabis finance, a little bit to understand there. Obviously, it's a big component of the industry as a whole, especially with the lack of capital and the need to really retain that capital and have really good P&L fluency across the board, especially as it relates to an ERP. And so, Andy, why don't we start a little bit about your background, how you got to be here? I know you talked to me a little bit about your background in Stripe and payments, and payments is a hot topic in this industry. So, talk to us a little bit about your background. We'll jump into LiveFlow. We'll dive into cannabis finance as a whole, and then we'll kind of set some good next steps for everyone to get excited. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the head of go-to-market here at LiveFlow, and part of what that entails is really deciding where we want to grow, expand, and just double down our stakes with the automation and financial analysis solutions that we have to offer. So to take a very quick step back, what LiveFlow does is we connect financials directly to a web platform, directly to Excel, to make it as easy as possible for business owners, for frontline managers, and anyone who really is a stakeholder and has any type of capacity for growing your business to really understand your financials. And as part of my charge in go to market, I really have the decision making power, which is quite nice to say, to double down on where we want to go. And cannabis in particular is one of the industries and one of the verticals that caught our eye very early on. We actually have been working with cannabis for the last 3 years, and LiveFlow has been around for 4 years total. So to get into a little bit of my background and specifically why I think it's an exciting place to be in, it's really because we were founded on the principle that each of the original members of LiveFlow had their own businesses where ultimately they didn't work out because we didn't understand our financials on the level that was necessary to sustainably keep ourselves in a position where we were going up and to the right, which is the right direction we want to be in. And I decided to come here to LiveFlow to make it easier, whether it's for folks over in cannabis or any other industry, to make sure that they can get things right where we previously made mistakes.
Love that. And I think that's so powerful. I know you kind of briefly touched on it, but why is LiveFlow, the company, equipped to deal with solving the challenges that, licensed producers as well as, cultivators and everyone across the space that they face on a day-to-day basis when it comes to just data and connecting that data and really getting a centralized view of their finances? Why are LiveFlow the company to do this, and what makes you unique in the problem solving that you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that is an absolutely great question. And I think there are really two parts to this answer. And the first is really just how quickly we are able to move. LiveFlow, the vast majority of our team right now is actually on the engineering side of the house, where as soon as we hear something that is a problem space or something that needs to be solved that any other solution on the market has not actually brought out there, we hop on that immediately. And specifically for cannabis, the approach that we take is highly differentiated from some of the offerings that are out there right now because we actually do have a head of cannabis. And unfortunately, he is not able to join this call today, but we have really deep insights in terms of what it means to be involved with manufacturing, to have plant touching entities, what it means to have a legal structure in place to keep yourself in business and the implications that has on finance, whether it is consolidation or analytics or anything else that you need to really dive in and get the insights that you would need, we are delivering on that at breakneck speeds. We have been in consolidation specifically with a standalone product for the last 12 months. And that has seen so many iterations and so many updates, specifically because of what our customers are telling us. That's why we think we are the right ones to actually get this right for the cannabis space.
Incredible. And one of our panelists, Dave from Native Sun, CFO of Native Sun, was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, had an emergency, but he'll be on the next one. And him and I were talking a little bit more about this the other day, and as well, Business of Cannabis in New York. Not sure if anyone here was there. Fantastic event. But what are some of the data sources that controllers, CFOs, directors of finance, just leadership in general? What are some of the data sources that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis? I know you mentioned Excel, but what are some of those other pieces that really complicate and obstruct their view of their finances?
Yeah, that is a great question. So LiveFlow, we do plug in directly to Excel, but we understand that the larger environment is going to be with accounting ledgers. So QuickBooks Online, Xero, NetSuite, some of the larger ERPs where financial information lives. But beyond that, we deeply, deeply understand the challenges when it comes to things like payments and other parts of the industry where there's not necessarily a solution in place where everyone can reliably go and know that you'll get the streamlined information that you need. So what I would say to really answer that question as succinctly as possible, it's the disjointed solutions that we need to put in place to make sure that we have the support we need for cannabis companies, and then taking that from all of these systems into one centralized area where you can dive in either as someone who is making strategic decisions or operational decisions on a location by location basis, where we are that centralization point. LiveFlow is bringing all of these hubs together so you could then make informed decisions. That's really what we're going after here.
Beautiful. And as a Salesforce alumni, the idea of centralization and bringing in data sources into one place where you can make data-driven decisions as a leader, that's something that speaks near and dear to my heart. Let's talk a little bit about data, and then I have a couple more questions for you, and then we can wrap. So data is a big one, right? There's a difference between data and insights. Talk to us a little bit more about, once these sources are all kind of put together, what kind of insights can leaders start to really gather? Obviously, it varies based on kind of the organization, but what kind of insights, or a couple key metrics, or a couple key dashboards, or anything like that? What kind of things can leaders start to really understand about their business as it relates to finance in general?
Yeah, I absolutely love this question. This is why I kick things off by mentioning that LiveFlow lives in both a spreadsheet as well as a web app environment. And I bring up Excel, Google Sheets, or whatever environment you might be in, because every business, as you mentioned, is different. And if you want to be paying attention to certain KPIs, very specific metrics, whatever it might be, anything that you are able to do in Excel, you are still completely free to with the power of LiveFlow at your backing. And what I mean by the power of LiveFlow is every single time something changes over in QuickBooks, in Xero, your accounting ledger, it is automatically translated into any spreadsheets that you have. So if you have a financial model that is looking at your gross profit margin, your contribution margins, your quick ratios, whatever it might be, that is consistently up to date because LiveFlow is fetching that information for you without having to lift a finger. And to really get to the second part of this question, what is available as part of the platform are pre-built dashboards. So if you wanted to have a look and see a point and click visualization where you don't necessarily need to know how to build anything, but want an interface that is intuitive enough to show you how you're performing in one period versus another, or how one entity is performing versus another, whether it's relative to months, to quarters, to locations, whatever dimensions you might be using on the accounting side of the house, LiveFlow already has that ready for you, where you plug in your accounting ledger and you are all set. You do some setup work, and from that point, your financials will always be up to date.
Wow, that's incredible. So, so as an executive, all the way down to that controller who's kind of feeding the executive, you have access to, I'm sure, user level data that's feeding across the whole organization. Let me ask you something, man. You know, in terms of adoption, right? Like LiveFlow sounds like an amazing platform, but if an organization's already using spreadsheets, is there an adoption curve, or what are you seeing across other industries, and what are you seeing in cannabis? Because oftentimes when I work with a variety of different technology companies, including Blaze and a few others, there's a lot going on for a lot of these cannabis organizations. A lot of them are trying to stay alive. A lot of them are trying to make strategic moves. Technology kind of seems to be, if it's not broken, don't break it, although it will break in the future. And so, how do you start to talk about adoption of LiveFlow as a whole? And, if I want to buy LiveFlow today, what's kind of my time from actually purchasing LiveFlow to fully implementing it and adopting it across my organization?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the second question first because that I think by far is the easier to address. And in terms of the options you have with LiveFlow, if you wanted to get started with consolidation, let's just say, so you have an overview of all of your entities in one single place. When I work with Dave personally, who is over at Native Sun, and they have quite a few entities over in the Northeast, his total time to actually get a consolidated report from LiveFlow was less than he would need to manually produce these on spreadsheets. So in his case, and it will vary from company to company depending on how large you are, I believe he was up and running within 48 hours. That was legitimately all it took. And once you have that initial setup in place, unless things change dramatically on a month by month basis, that will just automatically be ready and waiting for you, sitting in a nice package that anyone on your team can customize to what they actually need to see. That's the first thing. If we needed to do something like a dashboard visualization using that exact same data, because you've gone through that implementation work, it is not an overstatement to say that the connection that you can make through the LiveFlow product, which we'd be happy to demo during another session, would be 5 seconds worth of work. After you've done that initial setup, you have everything you need to then go ahead and transform that data however you see fit on our visual platform. And finally, if none of the above is necessarily what you're going after, and you want something that's completely custom to what your stakeholders are already used to seeing and what you might be used to seeing yourself, we can just plug LiveFlow into any existing Excel models, Google Sheets models, financial models that you might have. And that work, it really just boils down to how you built those spreadsheets to begin with. So it could be as easy as 5 minutes worth of work to a couple of hours worth of work. But the caveat here is once you set things up, you really can set it and forget it.
Wonderful. And so would LiveFlow, work in conjunction with a big data analytics tool? Would it replace a big data analytics tool? Talking about like an IBM Cognos or like a Tableau, what's that kind of look like? Or, is that even the right question to ask in this instance?
Yeah, and that's where we are very pragmatic about our approach. We know that we will not be replacing those BI tools because we specifically just have the purview of what is happening with your finances. But if you wanted to marry your data, for example, with other non-financial information, that is where we actually make the recommendation because we don't want to lead you in the wrong direction. But you should still be maintaining that tech stack that gives you the information you need. LiveFlow is a supplement to make sure that your financials are on autopilot.
Amazing. Last question for you. What other industries are you working across right now? Because one of my areas of study, and even at Business of Cannabis, one of the things I presented on was kind of taking aspects from other industries and pulling them into cannabis. Because although cannabis is a new industry, a lot of the principles that we're applying here don't need to be reinvented. And so curious. Obviously, you said you've been working across a variety of other industries, and obviously that's a lot of where your expertise comes from. One or two other industries that perhaps you're pulling best practices from, and some of our listeners and some of your prospects can feel comfortable with, that you're consistently learning from those industries. What would those be?
I would say the very first that is worth mentioning is the startup space. And specifically, what I mean here is we work with companies For example, Kalshi, which has been in the news recently because it was what enabled betting on the elections for consolidation. We
That's
work
right.
with Y Combinator, Excel, a
Amazing.
lot of PE and VC firms that have
Right.
visibility into startups. And because they change so quickly and more so than most other industries, that's where a lot of our learnings come from. But there also is something to be said about more legacy or more traditional industries like real estate, franchising, so on and so forth, where we're taking some of the best practices that their firms have developed over many years and marrying that with the fast pace of what is changing over in tech and producing a product that can be used interchangeably and agnostically from one industry to another. So to wrap that up in a little bow, I'd say both the old guard and the new guard are what we're learning from. And when it gets industry specific, like it does for cannabis, we're also taking that and running with it.
As someone who loves technology and someone who's seen firsthand how technology can really transform businesses at any stage, I'm really excited about LiveFlow's flexibility. Really seems like your team has the baseline knowledge to, transform these organizations and be a trusted advisor. I'm really looking forward to continuing to work together and, having you continue to drive this industry forward with your expertise. Where can people find you, Andy, and what would kind of be one or two key takeaways if everything you said no one heard or no one was paying attention to? What would be one or two key takeaways before we kind of jump here and leave each other with next steps?
Yeah, absolutely love the question. And first thing I would say is if there is any hope to simplify finances and make everyone across your company understand them to a point where you can start growing, you can make sure that everything is just taken care of. That's where LiveFlow, and I will give credit where credit is due, the folks in our space step in. The second thing that I will add on to that is LiveFlow specifically, we are the ones that are making changes and producing a platform that is specific for cannabis because we work with so many companies that give us feedback so often. So if you would like to learn more, actually have a look at what this could mean for your specific group, feel free to reach me at andy@liveflow.io, or the liveflow.io website does have a booking form where you could always reach out, and chances are I might be the other person on the end of that call in case you want to have people on.
Wonderful. I love a .io website. It makes me happy. You mean business with a .io website. I'll tell you that much. Awesome, Andy. Appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Everyone who's listening, thanks for the time. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day. We'll be back on here with Dave from Native Sun, and we'll be walking through a demo here, hopefully in the next couple of days, where you can actually see the platform a little bit more in depth. I know when I saw it, I was blown away and learned a lot. So keep an eye out for the next steps. And in the meantime, if you need anything at all, Andy just hit you with the website and his email. And if you need anything from me, you can always reach me on LinkedIn, Shabazz Kara-Virani. Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate the time. Thank you, Business of Cannabis. And we'll talk to everyone soon.